Hello, everyone, and welcome along to Championship Drill. Sorry, it's been a while. Joined here with Phil. Completely my fault. I got very, very sick over Christmas with some sort of a viral infection. And literally, if we were to do episodes while I was sick, it would have been probably 10 minutes of talking and 40 minutes of coughing. Because I had a ferocious cough for the last month or so. So apologies for that. That's why we haven't been with you. Purely down to me being sick. For no other reason, but we are back today to look back on the weekend's results, talk a little bit about the news, look ahead to next weekend, and talk a bit about the championship as always. So, Phil, you've been keeping busy watching the matches anyway while we've been away.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It was a long time with the World Cup, but now everything's back in flow, and everyone's back doing their playing week in, week out, which helps a lot.
Yeah.
Couple of very odd results this weekend.
There was a few strange results at the weekend, and a few important results for certain teams as well that we'll get to. I suppose the big news of the last couple of days has been Cardiff City.
Yeah.
Poor result at the weekend that we'll get to when we do the roundup of games. Sacked the manager, Hudson. Second manager they've sacked this season. They're now looking for their third manager of the season. They're turning into Watford. Club, like legend of the club, Robert Earnshaw was saying they must look now to a long-term appointment.
Well,
following the sacking of Mark Hudson.
They were trying to get Neil Warnock, I heard the other day, so that's...
Yeah, and Earnshaw was talking about that. He was saying, look, Warnock's 74.
Yeah.
Can you really bring him in for 6 months? And then try and get somebody? I honestly would disagree with Earnshaw. I understand what he's saying, that you need to be building the club.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was a fan of Hudson being sacked because he's just got
they do need to stay up though as well at the same time.
Yeah, so I think if you can get someone like Warnock, who we all know very good in this division, always has been.
Yeah.
If he still has the appetite for it, like you said, 74 now. But if you can get someone like him in until the end of the season, just to keep the club up, with the understanding that, like, even if you come in and win every single game, we're not keeping you on.
Yeah, exactly.
Next season,
So that's what happened last year with Mick McCarthy.
So you've got to watch out for those kind of things, and then maybe make that long-term appointment. But if you make a long-term appointment like he wants, you have to stick with him.
Yeah,
even if the club finishes 18th or 19th in the table, 20th in the table, you have to stick with it. If you appoint someone who you were like, this is going to be our guy for the next 5-6 years, you have to stick with them. You cannot be sacking a guy after 3 months because results aren't going your way. If you appoint someone for the long term, you have to stick with them long term. And I think Cardiff are in real trouble with the way they're going through managers this season and the way they're playing.
Yeah. Oh, very, very poor. Really poor. Sure, like, what are they? 24?
They're 3 points above the relegation zone.
Yeah, they haven't won in like 7-8 games longer.
9 matches since the last one.
Yeah, so 9
matches since the last one. If Huddersfield win their game in hand, Cardiff will be in the bottom 3. And it's not easy to get out of the bottom 3.
Yeah.
As we know. And they've also, they spent money, they brought players in, not worked out for them. They've gone through so many managers in the last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
And that it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a Watford situation now.
It is. They are turning into Watford. I mean, they've had more managers than Watford this season. Or they will have by the time they appoint the next guy. And that's saying something. You'd have got long odds in that at the start of the season, I'd say.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what the answer is. What do you think? Do you think a short-term appointment and then go long-term? Or do you think, like what Earnshaw says, they should look for somebody now?
Yeah, no, they need to get this ships. They need to stay up. Neil Warnock will definitely grind results.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It's a very tricky one because he's been there. How many times would this be? Was this the third time?
Yeah.
So it's very tricky. Like,
it is tricky. The one thing I will say is, and I remember me and you were talking to Mick McCarthy a few years back. When Mick McCarthy leaves the club, they tend to go downhill.
Yeah. It happened
Um,
with Wolves,
it's happened. Yeah, it happened to Wolves, happened
Sunderland,
to Ipswich, happened to
Sunderland.
Millwall,
Yeah,
and now it's happened to Cardiff City.
yeah.
Um,
And they're in
Mick
good form
McCarthy knows
there.
this division very well,
Yeah.
and sometimes things won't go right for him for a time, for a couple of months. But you've got to stick with the guy. I mean, he knows what he's doing in this division. Now he's not going to go back to Cardiff after the way they treated him.
No, no, no.
But Neil Warnock might, like you said, till the end of the season. Because, like you said, first and foremost, I understand Earnshaw's looking into the long term, and we need a manager that the board are going to back, that they're going to say, look, even if we have a terrible season next year, you're still our guy for the next 5 years.
If you look,
And we're going to let you build with the young team. We're going to let you bring in some players, all that kind of stuff.
if you look at West Brom, they're the perfect example of you bring in a young manager, it could really work.
Yeah, and I think that's what they want. But Cardiff are in a different situation in that they have to stay in this division.
Yeah, no, totally.
And at the moment, that's in doubt. Like
Yeah.
we said, they haven't won in 9. They're not playing well. They haven't played well all season. They're just above the relegation zone.
And they brought in too many faces as well. It's tricky. It's a messy
And a new
situation.
manager comes in now. Are they going to want somebody before the window closes? Probably.
They will need two players. They definitely need a forward.
Yeah.
Could we see the return of that Welsh lad that left for Bournemouth?
Oh, maybe.
Because he's not getting games at Bournemouth. So
it's a tricky one, and it's a tough time for Cardiff City fans. Who get in touch with us, Cardiff City fans out there.
But the championship.
Let us know what your thoughts are.
Just speaking of managers,
on the situation.
Just speaking of managers, championship has had so many this season. This turn of year, we're in the last 3-4 months, we've had like 5-6 managers change. Norwich just got a new manager.
Yeah.
West Brom obviously.
Yeah, West Brom's got a new manager. Obviously, Middlesbrough got a new manager.
Yeah.
QPR. I mean, there's been a lot. Luton.
Oh, it's crazy.
There's been a lot of changes. And to be fair, all those teams we named all going well in the championship. The only ones that aren't are Cardiff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, that's going to be a tricky one. For us. So that's kind of the big news, I suppose, is the Hudson getting sacked from Cardiff last few days. Like you said, Weghorst gone on loan to United from Burnley, but he was out on loan anyway.
Yeah.
Sheffield United have been complaining. The boss, Heckingbottom's been complaining about the new training pitch not being open yet.
Yeah.
And that they're training on a terrible pitch and the weather isn't helping. And it's affecting them preparing for matches.
And well, if the pitch is rock hard, I can only imagine how mentally that would destroy you, because you're going to get injured.
Yeah. So that's something they need to sort out, because if we look at the table, to be fair, we talked about this ourselves the other day. After Blackburn's result especially, it's very hard to look beyond the current top 2 in terms of who's going up.
Yeah, automatically, yes.
I think Burnley, Sheffield United almost guaranteed to be the teams that go up. Yeah. I mean, it's not just the points difference. You look at their goal difference. They're the 2 best teams in the division this year by a mile.
Yeah.
Like Blackburn are 5th with a -4 goal difference.
Yeah. So if you look at it as well, look at the table, then you can actually go all the way down as far as Hull. For playoffs.
You could. I mean, Hull are what? They're 5 off playoffs. They're 7 off playoffs. Something
7,
like that.
Yeah.
And plenty of games to go. There's still 26 games to go, or whatever it is. Exactly. Not 26, sorry, 16 games to go.
Yeah, so this is very tight. Like, it's very, very.
It is still very, very tight. It's tight at the top. It's tight near the bottom. But those top 2 are there's that 11-point gap between Watford and Sheffield United.
Yeah, it's too much.
And you're talking about a 16-point gap to Burnley.
Yeah, that's like 4 games, 5 games.
It is. I mean, if you're talking about an 11-point gap, you're realistically saying Sheffield United are going to lose 4 more games than you for the rest of the season.
That's not going to happen.
Like,
especially because
finish second, Middlesbrough finish second. They could, but they're going to have to win 11 of those last 16 games, you'd say.
Yeah,
not more.
They're not good enough for that.
Probably realistically, they need to win 12 or 13 of those 16 games.
Yeah.
because, Sheffield United are certainly capable of winning 10 of those last 16 games.
Yeah. Without a doubt, yeah.
So, Bristol City, talking about their finances, are at a more sensible level after they've kind of spent all over the place for a few years without doing really anything. And Coventry have said, look, they don't have lots of cash despite the takeover, but they're not panicking over squad depth. And to be fair, Coventry are quietly again having a decent season.
Just kind of. I suppose the manager again there now. He's a very, very good manager. He's done very good with him. After the horrible start, they've kind of leveled off a bit now, which is great.
They have. I mean, Coventry were in the relegation zone for a long time without the games in hand, but they started winning those games in hand, which was, what Rotherham didn't do a few seasons ago when they had so many games in hand. Although it was getting a bit ridiculous for Rotherham that season because of all the games that they had in hand at one stage, and they just weren't winning the games in hand, and that was the issue. So so that's it about news. I mean, there's other bits of news, transfer news and that kind of thing, but we'll do that kind of closer to the end of the window. And run through that, and we'll talk a little bit about teams that are kind of struggling as we go through the results and kind of what they need. I suppose running through the weekend's results, the big shock came in the earliest game of the weekend. Rotherham United and Blackburn Rovers. Blackburn had been going pretty well, it must be said. Rotherham had been going the opposite direction slightly. They've picked it up a bit lately. I don't think anyone saw a 4-0 win coming.
I think they hate half-12 kickoffs, Blackburn. I think this is This is the second time in about 3 weeks they've lost by 4 goals.
Yeah. And I mean, question marks about the goalkeeper in some ways. He faced 4 shots, he let them all in.
Yeah.
It
didn't help that they scored in the first few seconds.
No. I mean, you're scoring goals direct from corners.
Yeah.
I mean, that should never happen in football.
No. If you look at the possession of the game, Blackburn had almost 80% of the play and lost 4-0.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And had almost as many shots on target. Yeah. If they had more shots in the game, and only one less on target, and you lose 4-0. It's it's crazy.
Yeah, and Diaz is not performing for whatever.
Not performing. But they learn from this, going very well. They have one of the youngest squads in the league, Blackburn.
Yeah.
And Thomason has done pretty well since he came in. I mean, they're having a good season.
It's that kind of thing where you get a good few wins, but these results are always there that they could get.
They are there for them. And the danger is they're now only 3 points above Norwich.
Yeah.
So, and, above Millwall, and then you've got like Luton and Sunderland and teams like that are kind of on their heels now as well. So they're not guaranteed they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to have to fight for that. And like I said, their goal difference is way worse than anyone they're around.
And as well, Norwich now with their new manager look considering, well, we won't know for a few weeks, but from this weekend, they could be back on track.
They could be.
Because like it was happening for West Brom, and now it could happen for Norwich as well.
It could do. I mean, Norwich are one of those teams that you never know what's going to happen. One of the favourites to go back up, probably, with Burnley, the favourites to go back up at the start of the season.
Yeah.
They've just done it so many times.
Yeah.
But now we have, wondering what will happen with them. So we might as well talk about their games. We're on them. The other 4-0 win of the weekend against the Preston side that were pretty terrible.
Yeah, it's a strange one because they're going so well. They really were going well.
They are going so well, but they are Preston. So, they have these kind of games in them. Ched Evans, signed a new deal with them. So as we're talking about Norwich, the other 4-0 victory this weekend against Preston. Bit of a surprise, I suppose, in terms of the scoreline.
Yeah, because Preston were going well. They had a good few wins recently.
They did.
But again, new manager, new sense of belief, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose for Preston, Ched Evans signed a new deal. Yeah. They're probably going to sign another 17 forwards in the window. Because that seems to be all Preston signed their forwards.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
But they were hammered in this match.
Yeah, they were.
It wasn't like you said in the Blackburn game where Blackburn will probably wonder how did we lose this one 4-0 with all the possession and chances we had as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this was 4-0, could have been 10-0.
Yeah, they had over 25 shots, I think, on goal.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Adam Ida, who we know obviously from Ireland, didn't score, but had a very, very good day.
Pookie had a good day.
Pookie has hit form, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And when he hits form, they're dangerous.
Yeah.
Because he goes on these runs of goals.
Yeah.
Aaron's had a good game, couple of assists for him. Pookie with the 2 goals and the assist.
Yeah.
Again, a couple of early goals. 3-0 after 28 minutes.
Yes.
Game's pretty much over.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, Preston were going well, but now they're back in 13th. But like I said, it's so tight, that's still only 4 points off the playoffs.
Yeah. 2 wins and they're back in there again.
That's all it takes, but they're just so inconsistent.
But I know as well, like after this weekend, there's another break for FA Cup, so then it's almost like an international break.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
It is a tricky one. To figure out why Preston are the way they are. But we've talked about them before. It's eventually they're going to have to really either decide, like, are we just going to stay a championship team forever? Or are we going to try and push to get into the Premier League? And if they're going to try to push to get in the Premier League, they need to start signing better players than the players they're signing.
Yeah.
Because when they come up against a team like Norwich, who have very good players on their day, they show the difference in quality between Preston and Norwich, between Preston, those teams that are really fighting for it at the minute. And it was obvious. I mean, they were just played off the park.
Yeah. Exactly.
Another game we don't need to talk about too much. 2 teams that aren't going very well anywhere. Birmingham, who got the other 4 goals this weekend. Big win for them, though.
Bristol City, yeah.
Big win for them over Bristol City because it helps, just push them that little bit further away from the relegation zone.
Yeah, Bristol City as well. Now they're another team that are super young. We were only talking earlier about it.
They are, and they're a team that I think they'll be okay. They pick up enough wins that they should stay clear of relegation.
Yeah.
Likewise with Birmingham. But you never know. Never say never in this one. Like I said, Preston with 2 wins could end up going back up to the playoffs. A couple of defeats in a row for either Bristol City or Birmingham, and they're right back in that relegation fight again.
This is Bristol City's first, obviously, because we had the World Cup and everything. But
yeah.
You can't really judge it, but this is their first win at home in 4 months.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while. I mean, to be fair, they only took a month off for the World Cup. So it's been a while.
Yeah. It's
but,
good. I actually like Nigel Pearson, so I like to see him do well.
Big win for Bristol City, like I said. Yeah. Birmingham with the defeat, it just climbs them, like we said, that little bit ahead. I think that Birmingham won 4-2. I meant Bristol City, of course.
But Birmingham are very similar to Preston, who they were doing very well, and now they've like nosedived.
Yeah,
something happened.
Yeah, I mean, both these teams, like we said, they've got to start getting wins. Not every week, but I mean, they've got to pick up enough wins between now and the end of the season to keep them up, because they're 6 points above the relegation zone. Yeah. That could be like if Huddersfield were to win their game in hand.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably against Coventry, because everyone's game in hand seems to be against Coventry. But if they were to win that, then 29 becomes the bottom 3, and suddenly Birmingham and Bristol City are only 3 points.
Yeah, I know.
Off that relegation zone. And Preston would only be 8 points from relegation. Not that they're going to be relegated, but that's how tight it is at the moment. They're 4 points from the playoffs. They could be 8 points from relegation, which isn't going to happen. Obviously, 8 points is enough of the gap, really, when they're not going to go on a massive losing spree, although it is Preston, so you never know. Like I said, big win for Bristol City, because had they not won there, they'd have been right down there in the bottom still, and who knows, Nigel Pearson might have quit football forever, as he's threatened to do. Team on top, Burnley, got a bit lucky against Coventry in the end.
Yeah, they really did. A draw is probably a fair result, to be honest.
Yeah, I think a draw is a fair result. And I can even see a lot of Burnley fans online that were at the game talking about how Coventry can feel hard done by here.
Yeah.
Coventry didn't have a shot on target, but they did have they created openings. The
They were
finishing
good
wasn't there.
defensively. Defensively, they played well.
Yeah, the openings they got, they didn't make the best of them.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
and
But
I suppose for the goal, it's going to be a disappointing one because it came from a free kick.
Yeah.
And just before it was crossed in, and there was a bit of I wouldn't say there was a fight, but there was a bit of a kind of pushing and shoving match going on with both teams before the free kick, and that seemed to kind of, like I said, Coventry defended very well.
Yeah.
And they just seemed to lose their focus a bit because of the kind of pushing and the shoving.
Yeah.
And once they lost their focus, then it was kind of hard for them to get that back.
Yeah.
Sickener though, but Burnley escaped with the win, and it's a big win for them, like I say, because that's what now, 16-point gap or whatever we said between.
It's
is
just
it 16 points we were saying between them and third place Watford?
Yeah, 16.
Yeah, I mean that's a massive gap with 16 games to go.
It's just the way the season goes. When you have your luck, you have your luck.
Yeah. And no one was sure how Company would do.
Yeah. The big test will be next season.
Obviously a brilliant player. Did pretty well in Belgium as a manager. I wouldn't say he was outstanding as a manager in Belgium, but pretty good.
Yeah. And he's playing he's playing in a league similar to Scotland, where there's 2 or 3 teams, and that's it.
Yeah, never really been in the championship. Knows what it's about, and then if he started, has to be said, took a while to find their feet.
Yeah,
and probably for the players to get used to him.
No,
I think Colin, the Irish lad that they brought over from Anderlecht, has been sensational for him.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
in the middle of the park.
Outstanding.
And it's going to be nice, I think, to have a Burnley back in the Premier League next season who don't just try and hang on for point, like a team that actually play football.
Yeah, you don't want
it's going to be very different Burnley to what we're used to.
Looking for draws and 1-0 victories.
Yeah, and you can see what happens if you do kind of come up and try to play football.
Well, Fulham are an example.
I mean, Fulham are going for the Champions League.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I'm messing. They're not going to end up there, but they're certainly battling for European spot at the minute.
Yeah, they're playing very well.
Playing very well. You look at a team like Leeds, who could end up going down again this season, but they went up and they were like, "Look, we're just going to keep playing the same way we played all the time," and they've stayed in the Premier League the last few seasons.
Exactly.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they do. Sheffield United for me are the kind of surprise, because they've been down a few seasons. They've been kind of decent, but not great the last few years. Something just seems to click for them this season.
Yeah, that's
a couple of 1-1 draws. Then to talk about Cardiff, obviously we talked about they gave away late goal against Wigan, bottom side. Wigan in real trouble. I know they've got their famous manager in there now, but they're in a lot of trouble. They've got to start getting wins. Draws aren't going to be enough for them.
Yeah,
I
feel for him. I feel for him because I like him.
Yeah, I mean they're 4 points from safety now.
Yeah.
They've got to start getting wins. Then 2 other teams that are down there, sort of Huddersfield, who are in the relegation zone, 1-1 draw with Hull. Hull, like you said, could push for the playoffs. Hull go the other way; they could be in the relegation fight again soon.
And again, they were so close to losing because they scored in 98 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. But when I get into what was one of the games of the weekend, which your dad will love because it pushed West Brom into playoff places.
Yeah.
A wonderful comeback.
Yeah. They've had to do that twice now in the last week.
But these were games they were losing early in the season.
Yeah. Oh, we're not 100%.
I mean, they were 2-0 down after 10 minutes?
Yeah.
And they managed to turn around. No, Luton are having a very good season again.
Yeah.
And they're only 2 points off. Like, if Luton had won this match, they'd have been in the playoff places.
Yeah. That's how close.
There's still only 2 points between West Brom and Luton, even after this. So, I wouldn't say Luton are out of their playoff chances because they look very good. And the first goal just seemed to give West Brom that lift.
100%.
And the second half, they were really, really good.
Yeah, similar story to the FA Cup.
Yeah.
They kind of went down and they were losing and then it's 3-3. But like the comeback, the mentality is back because it was not there under Steve Bruce.
No.
Just wasn't working.
And, a good goal to win it from Townsend.
Yeah. He was a good player who had a bad reputation.
Yeah. I thought Jason Malumbi, again, an Irish player, got a goal, got up this one. I thought he was outstanding in the second half of this game.
Yeah, he seems to have found a groove. He's really kind of holding their kind of fort, I suppose. Now he's their Casemiro, I
Absolutely.
suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Luton will be disappointed with the Malumbi goal, I think, the equaliser, because it was a bit of a scramble in the box.
yeah,
I don't know what like it's tough. Where do you go from there as Luton when you're 2-0 up after 10 minutes and you lose the match? I suppose if you're going to go 2-0 up in a match, probably doing it in the first 10 minutes is not
yeah,
ideal because you've
yeah,
got 80 minutes left.
yeah. Because
And
it
2-0 is a horrible lead, as we all
yeah,
know in football, because if a team come back to 2-1, they have all the momentum
yeah,
on their
exactly.
side. Like a 2-0 lead is because you can be dominating a game 2-0 up. Suddenly, they get a corner, the ball hits somebody on the ear or something and goes in to the
Or
back
they
of the net.
score, or they
And
score just
suddenly,
before halftime.
yeah. And it was a killer for them. But so I think they're gonna be okay. And I think having Dyke back for West Brom, if he can hit the kind of form he did for Barnsley a few seasons ago, they're gonna really be dangerous
Yeah,
for the rest of the season.
yeah,
Uh, and when you think about where them and Middlesbrough were when the new managers came in,
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, talk about two good choices.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and I'm happy for Carlos Corberán because he's been bouncing around for a while,
Yeah,
and he's always been kind of
he
the
was
nearly
treated
man at the last couple of clubs he's had.
he was treated very badly at Huddersfield.
Yeah,
Uh,
um,
that didn't work out pleasantly for him.
yeah.
Uh,
Um,
just
and
go.
I don't know, how did your dad feel when Corberán took over?
Do you know what? He thought it was a good choice because they needed a young, fresh mind in there.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean Steve Bruce, who's since retired from management.
oh really?
I,
I didn't know he actually retired. Retired.
yeah, I don't know if that's by choice or just every club in the world just messaged him to say, look, it's not going to happen. Um, no, he's retired as much as the manager ever retires.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, exactly.
Uh, but again, a game of two halves, this one. But West Brom, very, very impressive that second half.
Yeah,
Um,
I think they'll be there or thereabouts in the playoffs,
yeah,
100%. Yeah,
yeah. Like Luton, like you said, I wouldn't be too upset if I was them. They had won three in a row coming into this game.
yeah,
West Brom's defense had only let in 2 goals in their last 9 matches or something ridiculous like that.
yeah,
9 matches or 10 matches or whatever it was, and Luton managed to get two against them in 10 minutes. So I wouldn't be too worried if I was a Luton fan.
yeah,
I still think they can push for the playoffs.
yeah,
But it's always disappointing when you go 2-0 up and you end up losing the match. But everybody, even going 2-0 up and drawing a match, losing a match is just a killer. Two teams that are kind of uh, decent starts, but have kind of not done much, but they're still not far off the playoffs. Also played a 2-2 draw, Reading and QPR, who did have a 2-2 draw. I don't know what to make of either of these teams.
yeah,
Again, it was a comeback from QPR, 2-0 down, did make it 2-2. Reading will
yeah,
be very, very disappointed. Um, you know, especially when Hendrick gets you 2 goals, because that's not going to happen very often.
yeah. These two teams now are teams that I think are just going to coast until the end of the season.
It's tough. It's tough though, isn't it? Because both of them, they're both only 4 points. They're level on points in the table. They're
Yeah,
both only 4 points off the playoffs. It's not like with 16 games to go, neither of them can do it. But they're just you look at them every month, say after every not even every month, but after every 4 games, they both seem to just be slipping down an extra place or two in the table.
yeah.
Uh,
So QPR first for a long time.
yeah, I mean they were running away with it. They looked amazing. Chris Willock was firing. Dyke was playing well. I mean, they were just looking really, really good. And then suddenly the wheels came off.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a strange game because Reading, who I think did Andy Carroll sign a new deal with them until next summer, until
yeah.
2024,
Weird,
which
strange.
is kind of strange, but there you go. Um, it's been a weird one for Reading, I think, this season, because they were 2-0 up at half time in this game. Like I said, 2 Jeff Hendrick goals, who, like, he just doesn't score goals.
Yeah.
Let alone 2 of them in one match.
Yeah. The last thing Reading need now as well is going to Manchester United and getting hammered.
Well, that's it. But, like,
that's coming up.
QPR were probably the better team in the first half, and they were 2-0 down.
Yeah.
It's a strange one.
QPR,
but they came back, and credit to them coming back and getting the goals. Roberts with the goals for them. 2 Hendrick goals for Reading, 2 Roberts goals for QPR. Yeah, it's a strange one. Jamal Lowe, who's on loan from Bournemouth, played pretty well in his debut. You know, if either of these teams get firing and put a run of wins together, sure, they can make the playoffs. It's just they haven't looked like they're capable of doing that lately. So, I don't know. Not a good result for either team, really, a draw.
Doesn't help. Like I said, like both these teams are just going to be thereabouts now. It's not like it's not like they've given up, but they've definitely not the mentality to kind of push, I suppose, is not there.
Again, a big win for Sheffield United over Stoke.
Huge.
Stoke, a team who are in real trouble. I mean, talk about teams that shocked when they sacked the manager, when they sacked O'Neill.
It was a weird choice for a new manager.
They are in real trouble of being relegated.
Yeah.
I mean, they are slipping down that table very, very fast. Big crowd for this one, like nearly 30,000 people. Obviously, Sheffield United going well. So that's going to be good.
So Stoke are only 5 points off the bottom of the table.
And you know, like we said, if Huddersfield win that game in hand, even if Huddersfield draw that game in hand, say Stoke would only be 3 points above the relegation zone. They're only 4 above it as it stands. I thought Alex Neil was a weird choice. I don't think he's good in this division.
And he kind of struggled with Sunderland last season.
And I don't think this Stoke team suits him.
Yeah, no, I know they're not.
Like Stoke's form has been pretty poor for a while now. You know, they had their chances in this game. Like, you know, they could have got something from it, Stoke. They certainly had enough chances, probably better chances in some ways than Sheffield United. But they're not getting the results.
No.
Like, it's all good to say, oh, we played well, but you're playing well in losing matches. You're going to end up near the bottom of the table. It's 1 win and 7.
Shocking.
For Stoke. I mean, if that continues, they're going to be playing in League One next season.
Especially because Huddersfield are kind of on the way up.
Huddersfield are on the way up. You don't know what's going to happen with Wigan. Blackpool are so unpredictable. You just don't know.
They go to Nottingham Forest, win 4-0.
It's
weird.
I just think Stoke are in real trouble.
If you look down the bottom, the teams that are in real trouble are, like, even though they won 4-0, Rotherham, Cardiff, Rotherham, Cardiff, and Stoke. 3 of those.
I think what probably on Rotherham's side is they've been in this relegation battle so many times. Because for those who don't follow the Championship too much, maybe, or have only just started watching Championship, if you think about the clubs, like we talk about our Sheffield United, West Brom, Norwich, Burnley, these teams that yo-yo up and down between the Premier League and the Championship. Rotherham are the team that do that between League One and the Championship. They're always bouncing up and down between those divisions. So they're used to this relegation scrap. So maybe that'll help them out this season. Who knows? In that one, Swansea with a big win, I thought, over Sunderland. Sunderland very disappointed in that one because they really had a chance to push for the playoffs. Not that they're out of it, obviously, but that was a big chance, and it puts Swansea right back in the mix, I think.
It's true. And Swansea, you don't know what's going to come from them now in the next few games.
No, I mean, they've been going well. Obviously, the red card didn't help. In this one, you know, very early red card as well. So you know, they've done very, very well. I think it's 5 wins and 9 or something for Sunderland in their last games
Yeah, I've said that they could
before
have
this one.
but I don't know.
Swansea have been on a decent run though. We talked about it before they played Cardiff, and played Cardiff off the park essentially.
Yeah,
Out of the two Welsh teams, they're just going in complete opposite directions at the minute.
yeah. It's a
And
weird thing.
Swansea, again, I thought Russell Martin was kind of a weird appointment there, but he seems to have got them playing well.
Yeah, he seems to kind of turn the corner after the kind of iffy starts.
Yeah.
Um,
Obviously, Tony Mowbray, we know how good a manager he can be. The red card, I mean, there's not much else to say about this game because the red card effectively.
Yeah. I know they still went ahead after the red card, but still it did change the game. You're right.
Absolutely. It's very hard to play, 10 against 11 for, with stoppage time in both halves. You're looking at the better part of 80 minutes with 10 men.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very tricky. Not going to be easy for anyone. Big win, like I said, for Swansea. It does give them an outside chance of pushing for the playoffs, I think. I mean, they're only 3 points off it, but it's not the 3 points off it. It's that there's a lot of clubs between them and the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they've got to start going on a very, very good one. A very, very good run now. Yeah. Sunderland, team with 10 men, did okay.
Yeah. 10 table.
Had a few chances. Possibly should have had a penalty.
Yeah. I agree.
No VAR in this league, obviously. Possibly they should have had a penalty.
They'll never have VAR. Never.
No.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
And it was kind of one of those. It was actually what led to the red card, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's a weird,
Sunderland should have had a penalty. Well, potentially could have had a penalty. Swansea broke on him, and that's when O'Neill decided he was going to go in with a heavy challenge on Cullen, and that was a red card.
Referee.
So had the penalty been given to Sunderland, I mean, the game changes in that 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It goes from potential penalty to Sunderland to, red card for Sunderland.
Yeah.
So the game definitely changed there. So the officials definitely, cost them a little bit. I'm not convinced it was a penalty though.
Yeah, it was harsh. It was very.
I think it would have been harsh, but it's one of those where you've seen them given.
Yeah.
Like if that's given as a penalty, you're not like, oh my god, that's the worst decision in the history of the world. It's one of those where if that was against my team, I'd be very disappointed if that was given as a penalty. Yeah. But I've definitely seen them given.
Yeah. I suppose there's like 2 other games.
Yeah, not many more to look.
Watford 2-0.
Watford, good 2-0 win. Yeah, pushes them into third. Mostly because of the results around them that they climb up to third. Probably keep Bilic in a job at least until after the playoffs. I suppose the big news for Watford was Toby Adeyemo, or Adeyemo rather. 17 years old, first game, comes on, scores a goal.
Yeah. Delighted for him.
Can't ask for a better debut than that.
No, hopefully now it leads to get a lot more because Watford needs someone.
Yeah. Martins, their Brazilian, came on, won a penalty.
Yeah.
Which Sarr tucked away. They're third in the league, which is, high up the table. Yeah. Like I said, they're 16 points off Burnley. Yeah. For the squad they have, it's pretty disappointing.
And especially as well, like you said earlier, goal difference is like 20. They have nearly a 20 goal difference swing on them.
Yeah. I mean, they're +5 Watford.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not been brilliant, can we say. I mean, we were jokingly saying, they've been on such a poor run, Bilic is going to be sacked.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wasn't that long ago. It was like, who's it going to be between Sheffield United, Burnley, and Watford? Because all 3 of them were very tight together. And now they're 11 points behind Sheffield United and 16 points behind Burnley. It's not been a great run for them.
Yeah.
But good win.
Very good win. Happy with him.
So yeah, Adeyemo. I know I said it was his debut. It wasn't his debut. It was his league debut. He obviously came on the FA Cup
Yeah,
game
like
against
it's his
Reading.
first start, yeah.
But his first league game for Watford.
Yeah.
And can't ask for a better start, really. 4 minutes after coming off the bench, get a goal.
Yeah, it's so good. Like if he can
Some
just
start.
if he can just
So
keep that
hopefully we'll
going,
be seeing more of him because he looks very impressive.
he looks strong as well.
Big, strong for a guy that's only 17.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be a monster when he's like 22, 23.
Yeah. If he could just start
So
scoring now
yeah,
and get him in the Premier League as well when they come up.
absolutely. And then someone put in a bid of like 20 million for him, and Chelsea will buy him for 70. And Watford will be laughing. So only one game to go, and it was a 1-0, not a great match, it has to be said.
Wasn't very good at all.
No, but a good win. Force with the goal. Again, a player I can't believe that Brentford let go.
Yeah.
I don't know how they let him leave the club.
He's a great squad player, yeah.
Yeah. I really don't know how they let him. But, a good pickup, I thought, by Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
He obviously got the winner. But at the start of the season, I remember we were talking about it, and we were talking about different strikers and, different ages of people and things like that.
Yeah.
And that for a team to do well, you need to be scoring goals.
Yeah.
And for Middlesbrough, you were picking out Akpom.
Yeah.
As a guy that's never really lived up to potential.
Yeah.
And that if Middlesbrough were going to do well, he'd have to play well this season.
Yeah.
He's 13 league goals.
Yeah.
He's been really, really good for them, especially since Carrick came in.
Yeah, he's kind of opened the whole. It's almost like the Ten Hag thing with Rashford. He's like a whole new lease of life.
And I mean, he was like, he didn't get the winner, he didn't score today, but he was brilliant.
Yeah, he's just
in this game today.
He's like Jesus with Arsenal. He just works hard.
So hard for the team, and you have to say, it's just the turnaround.
Yeah.
Like you look at some other managers that come in that were like very, very good players. You look at Lampard, I don't know, like did okay with Derby, spent so much money, they ended up being broke. Didn't get them up. Sacked by Chelsea despite he was a legend. Now he looks like he's going to get Everton relegated. Gerrard,
you can't come back
went up to Scotland.
You can't
won like one trophy in 3 years there with Rangers, and that was because Celtic threw the league away by being terrible that season. Comes down to Villa, doesn't do well with Villa, gets sacked. And then you look at a guy like Michael Carrick, who comes into his first job. It's not a glamorous team that he goes to.
Yeah.
It's a team that aren't even doing well. It's a team that are in real relegation trouble when he comes in.
Yeah.
And the way he's turned them around. I know Vincent Kompany is probably going to end up as manager of the year, but Carrick has to be up there in the top 3 for the job he's done.
I know it's the silly thing, but like, do you reckon the area helps? Like, he doesn't have to uproot his family.
It probably helps him a bit, yeah. But I mean, the thing is, you look at a few of the younger managers, and I've always said midfielders make great managers, and I know Lampard and Gerrard were midfielders.
Yeah.
And they haven't been brilliant, I don't think. Maybe they just started at too high clubs and didn't start down lower.
Yeah.
But you look at someone like the job that Arteta is doing at Arsenal this season. That's his first job in management.
Yeah.
This is Michael Carrick's first job in management. I know he was in charge of 1 game or 2 games or whatever it was at United as a caretaker, but that wasn't a job.
Yeah.
That was just caretaker role. So, like, for his first job in management and coming into a division that he's not been around for a long, long time, I thought the job he's doing is just unbelievable.
It's incredible.
I mean,
it's going to be very hard to pick who comes up in this playoffs.
It's going to be very, very tough. Now, one of the things it is, like we said, Akpom is playing really, really well.
Yeah.
He's doing really, really well. But they still went and got Cameron Archer on loan from Villa, who's really, really, tricky kind of a forward, who I think is going to score goals for them as well. Millwall, be disappointed with the loss, I suppose, because quietly Millwall were flying up the table. I think they'd won 4 in a row,
Yeah, no, they
or
might
they
have
hadn't
lost one or
lost in
more.
4. Maybe it was 3 wins and a draw.
Yeah,
But Millwall are only 2 points off the playoffs.
yeah.
And
It's
you
crazy.
think of managers who have done a good job. Gary Rowett has done some job at Millwall.
Incredible. Sure, that's why other teams are watching him.
Yeah.
There's a few teams
But I
play on
think
him.
he's one of those guys where he just suits the club,
Yeah, I know what you
and
mean.
Millwall just suits him.
Yeah.
And I don't know, would he be as good if he went elsewhere?
Yeah, did he play for Millwall as well? I think he
Yeah.
did.
You know, he's nice connection to the club. The fans seem to enjoy him, seem to like him. Again, I mean, Millwall came into this game. They had their chances. They set up defensively and tried to hit them on the break, which they did a few times. They'll certainly feel unlucky that they lost this one. But they certainly put up a good account of themselves. And, you know, again, kind of like, you know, the likes of Luton, the likes of Norwich, you can't count them out. And that's where, you know, West Brom, Middlesbrough, Blackburn, none of them can start to relax in how well we're playing.
Exactly.
You
It's
know,
going to be very, very interesting in
because
the final 6 months.
because Middlesbrough lose at the weekend and you get a series of mad results, they could end up 9th.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
At the end of the weekend.
Yeah. It's changing that quickly, like.
You know, that's how tight it is at the moment in this division. And you're talking about 16 games to go. Like, you're probably, to make the playoffs, going to have to win 10 of those 16 games.
Without a doubt, I'd say yes.
And, you know, not lose the other 6, but, you know, maybe pick up 2 or 3 draws.
Yeah.
Like, you're looking at probably not losing more than 2 or 3 games in the next 16 if you want to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's how tight it is, and it's going to be really tricky. So will we have a look ahead to the weekend's fixtures? Because I think there's some really interesting fixtures.
There's
coming
a
up.
big game on Friday night.
There is 2 games on Friday, which is kind of unusual. Sheffield United against Hull. So you imagine Sheffield United will have too much at home given the form they're on.
Yeah.
But Burnley home to West Brom, that's going to be a cracker.
Yeah, it's very hard one to call.
It is, and
both teams are formed, so
we know how teams like playing on the Friday night games in front of the TV cameras.
Yeah.
You know, they love that.
Yeah.
It's a really, really tough one to call.
Yeah.
Burnley probably the favourites because they're at home.
Yeah.
And because of the run they're on.
Yeah.
But they've been scraping the wins the last few. They kind of remind me a little bit of when Norwich went up the last time.
Yeah.
With a lot of 1-0 wins and a lot of like 2-1 wins and things like that.
Yeah.
Burnley have been kind of getting a lot of those results in the last couple of months. Not blowing teams away necessarily, but just doing enough to win.
I know what you mean.
Like I said, West Brom are on a great run, so it's going to be interesting. I think that's going to be a great game. We could have some goals in that one. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if that's a 2-1 win to either team, or a 3-1 win or a 3-2 win or something like that. I think there's going to be goals in that one.
Yeah.
You know, and it would be great. I think it's one of those games where it's like for the neutral, you want, which I know your dad isn't going to be a neutral watching it. He's a big West Brom fan for those who don't listen to us regularly. But for us neutrals, an away goal early on would really set that game up.
Yeah, 100%. Especially because Burnley, I don't want this going to be 0-0 when now we're gone.
No,
it'll be tight, like.
It will be tight, and plus Sheffield United are playing like 15 minutes ahead of them at home to Hull in a game you expect they're going to win.
Yeah.
And because make no mistake about it, the ambition for Sheffield United and Burnley is to get promoted first and foremost, but they want to win the division. They want to win the league. They want to go up as champions.
Yeah.
As much as anything else. Saturday's lunchtime kickoff. Norwich away to Coventry. Tricky one for. I mean, they don't have to travel too far to go to Coventry, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, not too far.
It's a tricky one. I think Norwich now began that run from 4-0 the other day.
Yeah.
We'll have too much.
And Coventry are just so good at home.
Yeah. Or 1-0 or 2-1.
yeah, I mean that's another game. Wouldn't surprise me to see it go any other way.
Yeah.
Like it could go either way. Like is what I mean. That one. Birmingham home to Preston. Preston just lost 4-0.
Yeah.
Birmingham just lost 4-2.
Yeah.
Um,
And all.
probably 0-0, yeah, or 1-0 Preston. Um, Blackburn Rovers away to Bristol City. That's probably not where Blackburn Rovers want to be going after losing 4-0.
No.
Because Bristol City, like you said, got their first home win in a while.
Yeah.
They're a bit of a bouncer out with them again. Good news coming out of the club about finances and things like that. Tricky one. Cardiff City, who we said are in real trouble, are playing Millwall.
Yeah.
Millwall are going to want to bounce back.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's a tough one to call again.
Very hard to call, especially with
It's
the new
one of these
manager.
games where I think like a set piece wins it for someone.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
Corner or free kick or something
I would,
like that.
I would have said Millwall, but the new manager leaving kind of
Yeah,
it all up.
it does. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Especially because I think they're playing Leeds tomorrow before that as well.
Yeah. So we'll wait and see. QPR Swansea.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. There's a lot of tricky games this weekend.
There is. I mean, both teams again didn't have the best results at the weekend. QPR drawing Swansea, obviously.
Yeah.
Going well, or were going well. So yeah, tough one to call. I think QPR at home. I just fancy them to get a win there.
Yeah.
I think they're going to go on a bit of a run again. I don't know why, because there's no evidence that that's going to happen. I just think that's going to happen for no other reason than I think it. Stoke at home to Reading. Again, Stoke can't lose. I mean,
I'm going to say result of the weekend. Stoke will win.
Yeah, I mean they can't lose this. If they lose this one, they're really in trouble.
Yeah.
Watford, who have been going pretty well. Well, they haven't actually. They've been going pretty badly, but they got a good result at the weekend.
Yeah.
To push them up to third, playing a Rotherham team who definitely got the shock, possibly of the season so far, with that 4-0 win. Watford at home, you'd imagine be too strong, but you just never know with Rotherham.
Yeah, exactly.
This Rotherham team have goals in them. They've had goals in them all season.
They really do, like.
And then Wigan, bottom of the table against.
You only played them the other day, so.
Yeah, tricky trip for Luton. Away trip.
1-1 on Saturday, so we'll see.
Yeah, again, tough one to call. Luton probably going to put as favourites, but again, Wigan at home, you never know. Then we do have a game on Sunday, which is a bit of a local derby match.
Yeah.
Sunderland against Middlesbrough, 12 o'clock kickoff. Obviously, that could be fireworks in that one. I know it's not quite as big as Newcastle Sunderland, but it is still pretty much a derby game.
Big, yeah.
So yeah, who knows? You can't predict derby. Both teams are going well.
Yeah.
I know Sunderland have hit a bit of a blip lately, but they are at home. There's going to be a big crowd at that. Yeah. You'd imagine. The atmosphere is going to be great. It is a derby match, so they're hard to predict at the best of times. So I have no idea what's going to happen in that one.
Yeah, very tough.
It's a tough one to call.
Good weekend, though. Hopefully there'll be a lot of goals.
And then Tuesday, like we said, is Huddersfield's game in hand, which is against Coventry City. And that will lead us into the last games in January next weekend. Yeah. So it's been a crazy month, January, and coming up to after these games, and once we get through the weekend of the 28th, we'll do kind of a more comprehensive transfer roundup. And that, obviously, if there's big news stories, we'll talk about that on the next show after next weekend's games as well. But we're not going to go through every transfer until the transfer window is shut.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But, if there are big transfers, we will mention them here and there, like Cameron Archer going on loan, like we said, to Middlesbrough and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's about it, Phil, unless you have anything else to add.
No, I'm just looking at the upcoming fixtures there. A lot of them are going to have to change because there's teams still in the FA Cup and there's not. It's just weird.
Yeah, I mean, the FA Cup is going to cause issues.
Yeah.
It always does.
Yeah.
In terms of teams having games in hand. But there's some big games coming up the next few weeks.
Yeah,
that could have an
come,
impact at the bottom and the top.
come March now we'll have a good idea what's the story, I think.
And once you start getting into the 10 games to go,
Yeah.
you really, it really starts to settle down a bit. But this season, I've never seen a table as tight as this.
Yeah, it's very close all around.
I mean, it's only really been the last 4 or 5 games that the top 2 have pulled away.
Yeah.
But like you said, from West Brom in 6th, like 9 points beyond from them is Bristol City in 17th.
Yeah.
Or Birmingham in 18th rather. So you've Birmingham who, are 18th in the table, are 9 points from the playoffs.
Yeah.
And there's always one. We say it every year, but it absolutely happens every year. There's always one from that chasing pack that just go on a run of wins and will win 6 or 7 in a row. And suddenly they're in the playoffs. And you'll get a team that just, draws a couple, loses a couple, and they drop out. And it's often a team that has been in the playoffs most of the season. And Blackburn Rovers are kind of the team that are looking like that at the minute.
Yeah.
They've been the team that have been in and around the top the whole season.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
And are now suddenly getting closer and closer to being dragged out of the playoff spots. So we'll wait and see what happens with them there. But it's going to be a cracking end to the season. Like you said, if you look at that table, how tight it is, and Luton and Millwall with games in hand, which I think is actually against each other.
Yeah, I think it is, yeah. You're right.
think Luton and Millwall's game in hand is against each other. So one of them wins that, they'd actually move ahead of West Brom and Blackburn in the table. So it's going to be an interesting end to the season, like I said. With the next 5 or 6 games, we'll see where we are after that.
Yeah.
And we'll see what teams can bring in January, because that is going to make a difference.
Big time.
Usually loan players that come into the Championship in January. So we'll wait and see what happens there. So we will leave it there, will we, Phil? And we'll be back again after next weekend's game.
Hopefully Sunday night.
Hopefully Sunday night we'll be
well,
back with you.
Yeah.
All going well, exactly. So thanks everyone again for the patience. Apologies for not having a show in a while, but I was literally too sick to be able to do a podcast, unless it was a special on coughs and coughing, because that's pretty much all I've been doing for the last month. So thanks everyone for sticking with us, for listening to us, and we'll be back with you again next weekend.
Yeah, cheers.